I'm going to tell you a wee story that I sometimes tell my kids. It comes from the Clan Macleod tradition. Many years ago there was a clan gathering in GalGael. Right in the middle was a wooden stake with a poor clansman tied to it. His only crime had been to take a deer from the hill to feed his family. Now as a punishment he was to be gored to death by a wild bull for the entertainment of all. But nobody said anything. Nobody, that is, until the chief of Macleod could stomach his dram no longer. Quietly he stepped forward, faced the host. "Why don't you let the man go?" he suggested, as a gesture of your generosity. The host pointed to the man on the stake. "You can secure his freedom, but only if you can stop the bull." The gate was thrown open, the bull charged. Quicker than thought, Macleod leapt into its path. He grasped it by the horns. At that, the crowd erupted. "Hold fast! Hold fast!" And he held fast. The captive was set free, and to this day the motto of Clan Macleod is "Hold fast! Hold fast!"
Colin Macleod launched his guerrilla warfare on the regional council 10 days ago by climbing a 90-foot beech tree on Barhead Road and refusing to come down. He was protesting at the region's plans to fell trees to make way for the new Ayr Road.
I'll introduce you to some of the activists that are down here. The main man, Colin.
Wel, rwy'n digyn tímigli caran fa tarig dyn. Mae dilwch ma'n profit.
He was magnetic. He had those qualities that a true leader has.
He was a very brave man, you know, he stood in defiance of tyranny. He led for the front.
Sjosse maar kjannert clan for lein ille, markemier.
I've always thought if there was a book about Colin's life, it would need to be a graphic novel. There's so many little stories that have a sort of mythic undercurrent.
Climbing a tree in Pollok may have seemed a crazy idea. However, everybody remembers there was a crazy guy up in Pollok Estate, up a tree. And so it helped raise consciousness and effectively engage the local community.
For 700 years, Pollok belonged to the Maxwell family. It is to her that Glasgow owes its debt of gratitude. In 1967, she gave the whole park to the city. Pollok is now ours to enjoy, from one year's end to the next.
Playground of ons, met ik Glasgow vaar, kan je wat zo'n tuinje waar.
The latest collision between protesters and road builders is currently happening in Glasgow, where the M77 motorway extension is about to be driven through the southern side of the city.
Land that had been given to the people of Pollok as part of the park was going to be demolished to build a road that the people of Pollok didn't necessarily want.
The M77 was perceived as being needed if we were to rely on private transport, which was the aim of the Thatcher government. But instead of being driven through the golf course of the rich, the motorway was being routed past 5 schools of a relatively poor area of Glasgow and cutting those people off from their immediate access to Pollok Park.
It was about the pavements in our community. It was about the loss of green space. There was low car ownership. People around here didn't have cars the way they do now. They were like, how does this benefit me? You know, what use is this to me? And there was a local kind of joke that you could go up to Newton Mearns, steal a Mercedes and be back in Pollok in 7 minutes, and that was the only advantage to the M77 motorway.
Colin did have a really close connection to Pollok. He lived in Pollok. He went to school in Pollok.
When he saw the motorway going through his own community, and particularly woods that he felt connected to through being his sort of childhood playground, his childhood escape, he really felt that he needed to do something.
It's our responsibility to defend it. The buck stops at us, so therefore we've got to get our act together. We've got to stimulate public awareness and get the young people out and get them shouting.
That energy he got from Pollok, that frustration, that anger, that shot him up that tree.
I was always dogging school and wandering, dreaming out the window, looking at kestrels and things, you know. My old granddad, he was from Barvis and Lewis. Look, he says, you should become a naturalist or something, you know, and I just thought that was the first time anybody's ever said anything that I was interested in.
Colin was born in Australia. We came back when he was 4 to Glasgow.
I came on, Sean. Tuurlijk, right. Josie, when I come by, I don't the unicorn of these. And ik zie je daar schoeien. I zie je de lust, so is in tail in Pollok.
And that was us, we were in Glasgow all those years. Well, Pollok was actually a nice spot because we're near the dams there up the back. A lovely big park and more or less lived in parks. 5 children, busy.
Because it was a busy house, a crowded house, a good place to get away from as well, you know.
And the Pollok, those years gonna Pollok State whole lot.
Colin was the best climber out of all of us. He would put a sling up a tree that was unclimbable, you know.
They got into the bird watching and the wildlife. He loved all that. And he taught the younger brothers the same, so they're all bird fans. There's many an injured bird came back to the house and he would feed it and try and fix it. It was always lively when he was around, that's for sure. Fixing things.
Ze man also interesting as an arenjacht.
I think he was put in his room a few times and he'd just dreep out the window. We were upstairs as well, but nothing could hold him in.
My teacher on the Curaidh Bank school, Colin, he had 3 trust. Dus daar in het Pollok wat jaren de naringers we had dossiers hier GalGael, so we had dossiers the weekends, Curaidh, I said, next year's roeder maar on.
83 I left school and the Thatcher period kicked in and the end of apprenticeships. It's kind of the defining point in my growing up. It was a kind of climate of negative gloominess.
Living in Pollok, you didn't really know at the time it wasn't that great, but I think it got worse when jobs got fewer and there was more poverty starting to come in, then the drugs come in, there was gang fights, and everybody just accepted that was the way it's supposed to be.
It became a strange, sort of prideful boast that our community was one of the worst and one of the roughest, and these are the stories that we would recant to other people about where we grew up.
Greater Pollok had been called one of the poorest places in Europe at that point, you know, in terms of housing and jobs. The community was ravaged, if you like.
I've always known that Pollok life was not the be-all and end-all, and I decided to follow my own heart in some respects and develop my own notions. Travelling the world as an impressionable young man helped me develop some of these ideas.
Exchange visits. We find Russia's, Latvia's, Hungary. We get tours back and forth. Dat brengt de heel is, dat is het. Dat finish en die wat tachers natuurlijk heb eens. Interchange of ideas. Verhalen Berlin er ga je malig is gejochs. Is all right. Fine, Piach container. Gaia, she is a priest, she had 3 surgery. She had 3 surgery well in the yard. Well, then open. Fine, Curaidh.
You can imagine the curiosity when the story starts filtering around that there's a guy living in a tree in Pollok Park, and it becomes a sort of urban legend almost.
And this kind of little community formed around the base of the tree.
Some were students, and then sometimes there were lecturers as well. We had people from all walks of life. It just grew and grew.
Fine, yellow. As to these, the Turlock shoes, clowns, clinging the skulls, we had tincheers, ballic skulls. Here's Orhul means Josie.
At first it was pretty rough and ready, but they started tidying it up and offering you cups of tea, and it was actually very pleasant. There was a peacefulness there, and meeting all these, they were all friends by this time, getting to know them. It was lovely. It really was a nice place to go to.
Here's the kitchen area, the redemption kitchen, where you can wash the plates and your sins away,
He cuts such a weird figure, because I'd never seen a white guy with dreadlocks for a start.
If you were just to look at him, maybe he would look kind of out of place. But it was just really what that was, is that I'd grown up in a community where everybody conformed to specific norms. This is how we govern each other in working class communities often. But Colin clearly didn't give a fuck.
And the biggest surprise is when the dreadlocked white guy opens his mouth and he sounds exactly like me.
Everybody spent all their energy in public inquiries and nothing's happened. The Secretary of State has rubber stamped it and it's just going through, and it's like nobody can do anything. Well, we're here to teach people that there is something we can do, and that is by getting in front of the builders and showing the politicians that, if you refuse to listen to us, well, we're not going away.
During the early stages, we put a chain across the drive-in road for the lorries.
Trucks are stuck there.
That were taking rubble and stuff away and bringing other stuff too.
Right, business. Let's move out. Thanks a lot.
That was the first real incident. Then we put 6-inch nails into trees so that the chainsaws couldn't cut them down.
There was a 100-odd foot work crane on the roadbed. Colin climbed up it, stayed up there for 3 days.
Probably cost him about £500 a day, that thing's sitting there.
When he finally came down, he was arrested. The case eventually went to the High Court in Edinburgh. Apparently, Colin kind of got a bit tired of the proceedings, left the courtroom, saw a claymore in a window of a shop on the Royal Mile, smashed the window, grabbed the claymore, ran up Bath the seat and sat watching over Edinburgh. That's the sword that Colin found on the Royal Mile.
He would suddenly get us up from the fire at the Pollok Free State. He'd say, right, come on, we've got a shift to do. And certain people who were working the motorway had left good lengths of wood out for us. And I can remember carrying humongous bits of wood on our shoulders, and all of a sudden it's like, down, down! And you're all down in the dark, and the security's come along in their car or something. In those days you just felt, well, if you're going to steal this bit of land from us, we're going to take some of your resources and turn it into something beautiful.
I took up the hammer and the chisel and I became a self-taught sculptor. And I used that because I realised that with my brief flurry with trying to be an intellectual ecologist, I just thought, there's no way I'm reaching MD in Pollok like this. So through carving, Celtic totem poles, stone carvings, you name it, we created basically the Pollok Free State was an art installation which was designed to make people open their minds and think about issues.
Each day was learning something new, joining in. It was the University of Pollok Free State, and that's literally what we called it.
Wat Coille in het of cruachig. Het tort duine kon er hele, agus Wat ek jomsog ek en nou skellig aan de heen.
Og wat hoort al as a Free State, har varit diamaniker, vad kan du carvings, vad goppos, could you go going?
Folk who maybe had never prospered in school or never had very much education were coming down. They were learning to cook around the fire, learning to make things, learning to use hand tools, chopping firewood or making paths. And life was happening.
People hear music they would never hear before. Some people singing Gaelic songs. People doing storytelling. People learning about the history of Scotland that had never been told before, not in their school books. Things just seem to click.
When the Pollok Free State was created, there was no parliament. It was a leading question. Where the hell is our local democracy? Where is our autonomy?
The unofficial visit to Holyrood Palace. Holyrood Palace had a statue. It was a lion and a unicorn with a bronze chain. Colin said it represented the Lion of England and the chained unicorn of Scotland. Well, Colin said, I'm going to get that chain off that one day. So me and Colin went through at night time. We didn't know there was security on. Colin said, right, on we go, Peter. And Colin jumped to the fence and I was about to follow him, and then I heard the voices. They're in there, they're in there. It's an 8-foot fence, by the way, not just any old fence. And he just flew right over it and started running. We were in the grounds of the palace. We could see police cars with their sirens going. So we kept on running and running until we came up against this wall. Colin gave me a punchy and he lifted me up first. And he said, wait there on me, Peter. So I put my arms down and he grabbed a hold of me and pulled himself up. We landed in somebody's back garden, and then when we reckoned it was safe to go out, we walked round the side of the building and back onto mainstream Edinburgh, and just sort of trying to look unsuspicious. So we never did get that unicorns, chains.
The idea of calling it the Free State it just fired people's imaginations.
There was a Declaration of Independence that we made in August '94. Passports were issued.
It was just creating another world within a world. You went in and you were in a different reality almost, with different values, and it looked different, and everybody was speaking about things they weren't speaking about generally outside or on the media. And a lot of it was based around how we fit into society and the natural world, rather than just what we were being fed, you know.
There was a sort of an order out of the chaos where they began to realise this is a wee society and they have to come up with rules that everybody agrees on, whether it was environmentalists, whether it was people for the scheme or the young Neds, for want of a better word. All these people were accepted there, but there were implications of them all mixing.
Initially we had sort of marauding gangs and interested people, and we had international visitors, we had politicians, we had activists, we had everything. It was a really stimulating environment to be in. But you had people coming down and, saying to me, I thought this was a free state and they want to smash bottles in the fire and create a mess and all that. I says, freedom comes with responsibility. If you want the freedom, behave or beat it.
One day, trouble erupted in the camp. There was metal flashing and realised that the guy was stabbing Colin. Basically, Colin had been stabbed 3 times with a really narrow blade, so that was quite a scary time.
while he was recovering from that, he said to me, "You know, Alistair, we've got to think like eagles. If you watch the golden eagle, you'll usually see it flying along looking for its food, and it'll be getting mobbed by the smaller birds. But if it goes off chasing after them, it'll never get its food." And, you know, this was the man who was still wearing dressings for his stab wound speaking. When people come down and try and cause trouble, just try to ignore them. Keep focused on the main task at hand.
I thought it was spiritual as a snake in a guess. Barach as an hul nachal. Nachal sinje feikin. Kema visro me in je weepelach. She spiritual had ik in alle weke. En haar ze en haar en joch.
The foundation values of Christianity: love, forgiveness. These ideas are foundation values which I connect with very deeply. When you look at the Gaelic culture, all the poetry, it's about your mountains, your seas, your lochs, the wildlife, the nature comes through very strongly, and these things anchor people, and they anchor a sense of place and a sense of connectedness.
An ó mis dul go fianne sin ag an áimítead ach bhaís ag an goró fianne seo gutramach or bha ma dhéon suirse.
The Criminal Justice Bill was travelling through Parliament at Westminster. That was connected to what was happening at the time. What was happening at the time was people were gathering in masses for raves.
Ma roi an an chruinneochuch jibarach ge gana trí agus ma bha repetitive beat sound wel bha dul na éilech. Leis a Free State sé crunneocha go bhain.
But Cashmack amach Glasgow trips for the Curaidh and Dalmach, Pollok Free Road, Hannig at the Mach gonna gaan.
Agus as an áte seo bha chalan agus de Free State bha de Tiana Rudigan etarialigte schon cuach a chud idáis na waifan na nune.
It's scenes like these from Friday which have sparked the latest controversy over the M77. Youngsters from local secondary schools were involved in protests which at times threatened to turn nasty.
The kids couldn't go to school without seeing us, you know, for buses, for the street, and they'd slowly but surely been joining, and some of their parents were there, and brothers and sisters. So they were very, very well aware. Bellarmine School had won an award for caring about the environment. And oh, the irony of them getting told to take care of the environment whilst this road was going to pass by their school, in fact, bring about the demolition of their school, was hypocritical beyond belief. And they knew that, they knew.
We're going on strike for school. We're going to get our point put there that we're not going to school until we know that this M77 is not getting built, because it's our future health that's at stake here. They're taking away our park, our environment, and it's just no right.
Some of the press was extremely negative about it and made it look like we were, you know, collecting children or influencing them negatively or something like that. But to say that is to downplay the knowledge that these children carried with them.
We produced a set of guidelines, complete with a wee permission slip, so that we could get some indication as to whether the parents were okay with it. But I mean, really, it was the kids organising themselves. We were trying to kind of just put something around that to help ensure their safety. But they were really articulate and had informed themselves of the issues that they were protesting about. So we wanted to create that space for them to exercise their right to protest as well.
I remember the most remarkable occasion towards the end of the Free State, when a number of fellow activists came up from England driving old bangers.
This is going to be a day of complete anarchy.
We thought, do a bit of direct action, involve a bit of earth first tactics, just to do some stunts, just to get the media coverage, to let people know what was happening, let people know that it's just, you know, I mean, too much to let go, you know what I'm saying?
The bangers were pushed in, tipped up on end, and so you had a Stonehenge made of cars. That night, they poured petrol over them all and set light to them.
We all stepped back and looked at this blazing mass of metal.
We sacrifice these machines of rusting dreams.
Horrible, the reality, the fumes, ugly, concrete metal. I mean, it just signified everything that was worrying us, and it also drew a lot of attention. And to this day, people still talk about Curaidh.
It was near enough, I think, psychologically and spiritually, to be the grand finale, saying, okay, you can have your grey car economy, but this is what the planet thinks of it. This is how the planet will remember it.
On the day that the camp was going to be finally swept away, I'm talking about it as if, you know, but it was a terrible day, like a big funeral, like a big sad bereavement. That's how I remember it.
This part belongs to Glasgow. If you belong in Glasgow's welcome here.
De SES var sträpt av alla. De hus i råpens. Han är ordnade Pollok var ballig. Protest var toch hus gejocht. Toch aan de kruvens had ik het laatste jaren zies. Ach, voor jullie. Maar kusak aan, dat is het.
It did get really ugly. It's really nightmarish. It's very Armageddon. And the same day that you're trying to stop them bringing the trees down, about 50 yards away, the trees that they've already brought down, they're already starting fires and setting them alight. You've got all this smoke blowing in you, you've got sirens going off. It's like the end of the world. And it's sad.
Before we knew it, we were just surrounded by bright, glowing police and security, and they were erecting fencing, and everything was going on really, really fast.
Colin had an injunction against him being in the area of the Free State. So he was there, but he was kind of hanging back in the woods. I was kind of trying to keep him, hold him back. And there was this kind of screaming and chainsawing going on in the main camp. It was really upsetting because it'd been your home for such a long time.
I remember we were like caged animals. We were screaming and we were greeting.
There were people being kind of dragged out of their tents. There were blankets kind of lying all over the ground, and I remember getting quite emotional.
Leave the site now before you destroy any more trees.
I was warned that I would be arrested for breach of the peace if I didn't shut up. But I was already too emotional at that point. I remember getting escorted away to a van just as Colin's mum and dad came rushing up.
Could you go in and see us, Sean good mail or.
The word must have gone out, and there was crowds and crowds of people there. And in amongst all of that kind of chaos, I remember one of the protesters had found a mirror and he was holding it up to security guards, and they couldn't look themselves in the eye.
We started appealing really strongly to these security guards.
You've not got children.
And they started saying, look, I need a job, and I need... We're like, we know you need a job, but please, you know, and it was awful because we felt sorry for them as well.
Get on you, man. Get on you.
One of the security guards did indeed throw off his hat and throw off his jacket and leave the line.
He just didn't agree with me. It was getting harder to stand there and say no. I mean, what's the he's doing in the protesters? I mean, I agree with what they're doing.
Why is this man being arrested?
They kept on to the bitter end. But eventually the people accepted it, that there was just going to be a road.
Altijd ben ik erop gezegd, dat je niet te huis. Ik nietedig. Ach, dan had het point about 400 jaar. Dan groot het alle huizen die roten taart. Kun veilig, kun visags, kun consent man.
It's not the fact the motorway ended up getting built that everyone remembers. It's not the fact we lost that everyone remembers. It's the feeling of connectedness that people felt when they were down there. And that's what life's all about, win or lose.
In some ways, I feel the motorway was only incidental. I want to create a world where people rise to their duty and stand up for their honest cares about what's happening in their environment.
In the late 80s, Colin and a friend from Pollok, Tom Elliott, they went on a trip to America. It was funded by the Scottish Tree Trust to learn about environmental concerns in America, and in particular South Dakota, where there was an Indian reservation.
Well, it was a massive culture shock to begin with. We'd done a lot of ceremonies with the Sioux, sweat lodges, powwows, sun dances, and we went to college every day to learn more about their history, which changed both of us profoundly, especially Colin. It was really hot one particular day, and one of the Sioux elders drove us to this lake so we can go for a swim. We arrived there and there was 4 young Sioux. They challenged us to do this thing. You had to run down the hill, 2 feet on the small platform, and actually use your body to go over the canopy of the trees and dive in the water. And I said I wasn't doing it. And Colin immediately went, I'll do it. So the Sioux guy went first. He done it no problem. Then Colin done it. I couldn't look. He just went into a brilliant dive right over the trees, into the water. And his technique was brilliant. And then they did it again. Colin went first, no problem. Then the Sioux guy done it. And I seen his leg trailing a wee bit. The Sioux guy hit the rocks. And Colin went over. But he didn't want Colin's help. He shouted, I'm a Sioux, and he straightened himself up and brought his arms up. He was obviously very, very proud Sioux.
Colin could see the links between the Lakota and the reservation, and almost like people in reservations in Glasgow. And it really affected them, and it made them see, the big picture, as it will,
The older age group had Indian ink all over their arms and all over their hands, the way you would see in Pollok or Govan, these people with mum and dad on their knuckles and stuff.
Door tachar dan lijn, wat tachar dat ze ski dat ik niet weet jochs druk ik in de
They tried to turn them into farmers at some point, which messed them up even further, because you can't turn warriors into farmers. So they ended up with massive issues, And that was one thing I noticed right away was the sobriety dances, because everyone had a serious alcohol problem.
Well, I think tar an na Glasgow mar run cydioch nach ro. The going factories, the yards. A tor balich nach ro. A never, I wrote up and down.
They lost their identity as a people, completely and utterly. And you can't do that to people who have thousands and thousands of years of cultural history. You know, you learn from people like that. You don't take it away from them.
When I went to North America and stayed with the Lakota Sioux, I went into a prefab house. The kid running about could only speak English, and his granny could only speak Lakota Sioux. Within one household, there was a death of a language. My granny could speak Gaelic, and what we're seeing the bleaching out of our own culture.
He didn't speak Gaelic himself, but he knew phrases.
You speak a Gaelic?
I do, yeah.
A wee bit, aye. Give it a how.
Clever.
Good man, good man.
Yeah, the one all right. Got a fit on the Glasgow.
And that set him off on the trip to regain some of our Gaelic heritage, you know.
And I think some of that was also part of his way of understanding what communities like Pollok were experiencing and been lost when the traditional structures of community and traditional society were broken down.
And the Native Americans have created a college where they teach people to be proud of who they are and their history and their language, their music and their beliefs. And when I came back to Scotland, I thought, well, you know something? We could do that here, rather than feeling like we're second-class citizens in our own nation, living in impoverished schemes.
I vividly remember the time that Colin said, "We've shown them what we're against. Now let's show them what we're for."
Even when the road went through, there was a real sense that people wanted to just continue discussing and wrestling the ideas that we were engaged with by that time. And I think that was really interesting in the formation of a lot of the thinking that underpins the work that we went on to under the kind of banner of GalGael.
In the 9th century, the Norse came, they invaded, they settled. They were assimilated into Gaelic culture. They adopted the Gaelic language and Gaelic way of life. However, they brought their own culture with them. Scottish culture evolved. They coined the term GalGael.
They were strange or foreign Gael. Gal, the stranger, the foreigner. Gael, the heartland people. And Colin said, right, we're now going to be GalGael.
It's not enough to have the great dream. We're interested in people who want to wrestle it into reality. And that means getting your sleeves rolled up and dealing with the rough as well as the smooth.
There was some trees that came down in the local park. So we put our gyros together, had that milled into timbers to build a workshop. That was our first project down in the centre of Govan, and pulling in lots of different people, so people with skills who could show people how to use a hammer and chisel and make the mortise and tenon joints for the structure, and then people who heard what was happening and just came down out of curiosity and ended up getting involved in building this workshop alongside people from different backgrounds.
We can't mooi in draaids kan die ballig. Ik is jags. Hier de is many mee shows. Zo chisel no. Orden all against. A piece maatje, a piece. Is het piece glas. Ja. Maar toe, maar toen nog zijn jaren. Ik is jag.
Colin Macleod challenged the bureaucrats in a good way. He challenged them when, you know, areas that were forgotten about because the people weren't coordinated enough to challenge them. We defied them and we just built.
There's lots of labels. You're a drug addict, you're an alkie, you're unemployed. There's a lot of negative labels kicking around. And what we find is that amongst all the labels, you find people. And that's what GalGael's about.
The idea to build a boat had been around since the days of the Free State, because Berlins were associated with the GalGael of history. Colin saw involving people working alongside to build a boat as being a means by which we could achieve some of our early vision around social and ecological, cultural renewal. We were approached by a local addiction project to put together some activities for people who were in recovery. And so that kind of came together in building a 12-foot model Berlin with John Coille.
Wel, tra Colin hyn, hannig yw gymso, hagos bad biachgach ageth torsach togal bata. Agus fa wy gesna siawn Berlin gaelach.
And that was an act of defiance in itself, because the Berlins were outlawed in the early 17th century by King James VI, and the knowledge that the clans of the West Coast were using them.
One of Colin's famous carvings is the West Coast of Scotland. And I'm like, how come you've done that? You get something against the East, Colin? And he's like, no, this is where we used to take the boats, Danny, up and down. This is where we would trade with Ireland, and they'd come in there, and we'd go up there and skip up to there. And he's like, we've got to bring that back. We've got to bring the skill back. We've got to get back out in the waters. But it's got to be available not just to your rich yachtsman and your rich mariner. It's got to be for everybody.
Push Calendrum. The people in Govan have lost their identity twice over. Once when they were cleared from the Highlands in Ireland, and then again when the shipyards closed. Agus van oper ik Calin, agus ik GalGael, frikkerch ir a húsin. Va taring clechgi an dúchasach na Gael, agus cúteach a giúmsach vo luchtúsanich eile mar isimplar America tua, agus sé mesk cuachgach comasach a sin. Agus va an oper ik Calin, va fiachin dói bethe a gúsgach an an dúne.
Hwga togal môr gos y fesgyn, na dynnu fe sio, gwyd ydra trwag enni fe ti'n ystach fer an draad, agos se, trwag enni fan an cwtiw, agos dynnu fe ffeimach gyn togal a horsgaif, na'n be ein.
The boat was phenomenal because it kind of focused the attention of the people of Govan, who were at that point in time, the history of Govan, it was a challenging time. There was no industry. People struggled. So that focus for young and old, it was a great relief. You know, this idea that we were creating something traditional, you needed skill, tremendous skill to build it, and we were doing it collectively.
At the end of the day, you have a boat that you can go and have adventures on, and you've got the River Clyde there that most of the people in Govan have never been on, apart from the ferries years ago. So we kind of reclaimed the Clyde a wee bit, and then we started going further afield in the boats. So it was life-changing for people who had been largely disempowered round about that time. We're starting to empower ourselves and showing what we could do.
And what GalGael does is they say, you are now part of your community, and they have an intuitive understanding from the moment they begin to the moment it's finished that this is a journey of learning, of connection with other people, and they start deriving a sense of purpose from that.
We've got to take responsibility. GalGael is trying to do that. We just want to help create a better community for everybody.
Our first baby was born when we were still living down at the Free State, Tawny. And then about a year and a half later, Iona came along, and that's when we moved to Govan. And then shortly after that, Oran was born, just as GalGael was establishing itself in the Govan area. Colin was a really loving dad. He had a huge amount of fun about him. He was always kind of drawing them into the things that he was kind of curious about.
He would just be like so excited for absolutely no reason about the smallest, tiniest little things. He would get like mega excited. Like he'd be like, Iona, I found this new kind of stone. You can carve it and it's black and it's really easy to carve. Can you help me to find more of them? Or, you know, just any tiny little thing. Like he would just get so joyful about it.
There was always some place that we had to go and visit, trips to find some cup and ring mark stone that he'd read about in a book.
He would tell us stories, and the story would have a lesson behind it, a little pointer or something to guide you. He would tell us a story about an Egyptian princess, and then a Scottish warrior came across on the boat and asked her to be his wife. Me and my sister and my brother would be like, you mean you and my mum? Because my mum, she's half Egyptian, so whenever he told us that story, we would just be like, shut up, Dad.
Colin filled the kids with his love of the natural world.
A tree nymph hiding out in a beautiful round trees. Hello!
You know, he had incredible knowledge of birds and plants and animals that made him an amazing person to be around.
Watch the wee spider's web at your leg.
Nearly got stuck there.
That's a spider's hoof.
Why would a spider want to make a web next to the water?
That's where all the midges go.
He could kind of spot a sparrowhawk from miles around, but if that was your dad, that's, I think, an amazing childhood memories that they'll have.
Enjoying yourself, guys?
Yes!
Coille had a big square rig sail. She's the biggest boat we've built so far. And none of us had any idea how to sail, so we built it anyway and we splashed right out into the sea. You can imagine if you're from Govan and suddenly you're out in this ancient boat and there's dolphins jumping out the water and things like that. It was amazing, you know, it was just a bit of a dream, you know.
It was absolutely mental. And I had to, like, psychologically get myself ready for this. Because we had this humongous boat from the Lord of the Isles, you know, and everybody would turn up and it was a holiday for everybody, hey, here we go and that, and Colin and that came together and taking these boats out. And it was just the same way of all of us coordinating the oars in the boat was what we were doing back in the Free State. So it never died in a way, but it had learned us and it educated how to work as a team and support each other.
We get an invite to go to the Magnus Barelegs Festival, which is who was a Viking.
Pick up the stroke, taking your time from Colin.
Simon, Seamus.
It took us 18 hours to row and sail. It was a long shift. It was really dispiriting seeing the ferry passing you about 20 times, you know. It was great though, it was a real adventure.
We went to Ireland with the safety support boat, with Coast Guard. We'd done everything by the book. We had one Ned from Govan, and he had to adopt our gang values of respect and, you know, teamwork. And he came across, he was quiet as a lamb. He enjoyed his cell. He was doing everything. We had the longboat races, and GalGael, with our Gaelic rowing song. We almost destroyed the Gaelic language singing it, as well as the opposition. And GalGael won. The guy had the trophy, and he says, could you bring your captain out?
Hold it, right, just a minute. I've got Craigie boy. He's one of our young participants. He's been having a hard time back in Glasgow, and we brought him out here on a life-changing experience.
He's just narrowly avoided a 2-year sentence. He's been working with GalGael and he's made us proud and he's made his community proud. We're re-releasing him back into the gang. He's had a good experience. We've brought him on a bit. It's a wee bit of salt that makes the soup edible.
We came to look on the boat as both a reality and as a metaphor, about the journey of life. This is where you build the courage to face life and to walk on. And then you come down to the sea, the peace of the ocean. You become an elder in your community, able to help others go on that same pilgrimage of life.
Things had been getting busier and busier, and the pace of things was picking up. And I remember saying to Colin before we went to do another event that, you know, we thought this was a sprint, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a marathon. Maybe we need to pace ourselves. This event was going to be 2 days. So I said, well, ring them and say, we'll just do the Saturday. So we went and called them and came back off the phone and said, oh, we'll just do the Sunday as well. And I guess Colin was a sprinter.
I remember they had his phone book and they were trying to contact people after he died. There were 3 days at it and they stopped. They couldn't get, there were so many of them. They stopped. Oh, it was all about people, Colin. Great fellow. Wonderful. He'd give you the jersey off his back. That's who he was.
We got our best bits of oak and everything we could, and we built his coffin in the workshop.
We gave him a great send-off, you know. I thought they'd be really proud of it. I remember, you know, we walked from the GalGael up to the Govan church. People were all taking turns carrying the coffin.
The funeral was amazing. The community turned out for him. There was people outside listening to the service. It's quite an amazing thing.
We were astonished. The street was full of this procession. We couldn't believe it. We really couldn't believe it. They filled the church. The doors were wide open. They couldn't all get in. And really, there was nobody more astonished than myself.
In that the rock one quine firm, ne hat the rock.
Chéin mi óran ag an hiolaigh, chéin mi an adroch gard sin an óran bha jahan na giúri. Be óran gymafrogaroch ga bhain ha mi smynioch or sé óran a haun ma yin yn hwan agus yn fwth.
In that the rock
It was tough for me, it was tough for Colin's immediate family, but it was tough for everybody who knew Colin.
Then we went up to Lewis. Lewis was amazing as well. And the journey there, it was just continual rainbows. You know, it was sad and inspirational as well.
We had to go via Skye to avoid the ferry cancellations caused by 100-mile-an-hour gales. As we waited for the ferry, we saw a bolt of lightning, which is rare in that part of the world, and we heard the thunder roaring.
We had a pair of his old work boots as well, and we buried one of them in the Free State, and we took the other one and threw it into the Minch, just to show our territory a wee bit.
On arrival in Lewis, we learned that lightning had knocked out the power in the Free Church, and so the service would have to proceed with no artificial amplification. The service was very traditional island Calvinist, in which the minister preached that death is the consequence of sin.
Which was quite a harsh service. I've never been to a Free Church service, and it was quite harsh. And it angered a lot of guys.
We then carried Colin on his last walk. During the procession, his fellow spiritual warriors passed back his claymore from hand to hand. Throughout the interment, another rainbow arced over the cemetery. At the graveside, one member of the family asked me if I wanted to say something. And I just said that our memory of Colin would not be as a man of sin, but as somebody whose work embodied the love of Christ.
We went to Colin's mother's house, and there was so many folk. My wife was saying, how's Colin's mother going to attend to this and feed all these people? And then when we came back, all the food was on the steps at Colin's mother's house. And that was very, very powerful.
After the funeral, we'll just sit and have a cup of tea in the garden at Grava, and suddenly there was 3 eagles circling just above us. But we felt he was still up there somewhere or still about. It was a really good thing for us, you know, at the time. It gave us a wee lift, definitely did.
A for a níos hannig isteach. Hannig Colin, so that he was a man. Sin dúlich, eh? He was a man.
It's funny when people ask me, because, you know, if they haven't met him and they've heard stories. But the father that I knew, he didn't want to be made special. He just wanted to get stuff done. And he also was always empowering and uplifting other people. We all have a part to play, and we are all powerful people. And if anything, that's his legacy. That's his legacy.
The poor are tied to the stake. Our leaders have a chance to show whether their power is for greed or for service. They must decide whether or not to confront poverty and help end these injustices. Let the cry of the people be heard. Hold fast. Hold fast.
Maranyulada arto,